What is going on, everybody? We are the night after pre-release. It is Saturday. I'm feeling good. I'm not feeling great, but I'm feeling good. Little recharge, ready to go, and let's talk about this pre-release. So, as you can see on the screen, I have a deck put into Architect that I will attach down below in the description, but what I want to show you here real quick before we dive into the cards, talk about the cards that I did play, the cards that I didn't play, my matches, what I came up against, things like that. I want to just show you kind of the distribution that I had here. So I was like white, black with a splash of blue. You can see my average mana value there is 3.25, so I did have a little higher cost cards. It was a little higher, but it didn't really hurt us too much, and we'll talk about that in a second. And then right below that, and my camera is actually blocking part of it, is the color distribution. So white spells, black spells, my single blue, and the colorless spells there. So now let's dive in and let's talk about the actual cards that I ended up playing and kind of why I ended up doing it. So first up, I ended up playing a couple discard spells because I feel like, especially in a sealed, like limited style format, discard can be really strong because you're forcing your opponents to basically lose cards in their hand, and losing cards in your hand and having less options is super valuable. Even if they're throwing away their worst card, still it adds a lot of value to you. So we had the Virus Beetle, we had two of them, the Beetle, and they get to choose what they discard, but then the Temporal Intervention saved me a couple times from counter spells, board wipes, those type of things. And I think I actually chose a counter spell when I should have probably chose the board wipe in my match 3. So yeah, let's slide down. I did have one that I put in here specifically for the draw effect itself, and that's the LG Acolyte here, and it's a 4 cost, but this got me into quite a few games. So let's see, I think in my round 2, my first game, it helped me stabilize a little bit. My match 1, game 2, it also just helped me get back into the game and actually make something of my deck, because let me tell you, that match 1, game 1, I ended up actually being land starved and I couldn't get anything, and I had 4 cost cards and higher in my hand, and I had my 1 blue card, and I just couldn't do anything with it, so that didn't help very much. But once I got this guy out on the second game that I played of the night, just ended up actually gaining a ton of life, which was, I was playing it specifically to try and draw me cards and also create those 2/2 robots. And I got a couple 2/2 robots. It drew me probably 4 or 5 cards throughout the matches, and I probably gained 12 to 16 life off of it. So good card, and did have a couple of my opponents end up using removal on it specifically just because of the lifelink effect and the draw effect. Next up, I put a card in here. It's a little like do something, do nothing, the Monoist. I can tell you, every time I got this card out, it never got killed. In my match 2, game 2, this guy actually came in clutch for me. It was one of the cards, also in addition to some of the removal that I had, that I got on the board, and I was just able to fly over top, deal 2 damage, deal 2 damage. I think I ended up putting a couple counters on it, deal 2 damage. So that was one of my MVPs of match 2, game 2. Then I put in a couple go wide cards because I wanted to have a little bit of a board state, so I still have something to throw in front of creatures that are coming in attacking me, just hopefully I can stabilize, right? So the Honored Knight Captain, my opponents were terrified of the 6 cost. Fun fact, didn't have any equipment in the deck. And then Station Monitor, I was casting 2 spells a turn almost every single turn. So getting a 1/1 colorless drone artifact down would have been great for me. Probably would have ended up cutting this now knowing what I know out of the way the deck played. And taking a look at my land base, I did get a Meteor Crater, which was pretty cool, but if I were to take it out, I would definitely put a Plains in. I already had 5, I had 8 swamps, 2 islands just to suffice for the monitor. Yeah, and that was my land base for this. So then I also had a card that I put in there specifically for life gain, and believe it or not, I never gained life off of this card. Flight Deck Coordinator. I did have 2 of those too. The nice thing about this is the fact that it came in as a 3/3. It was kind of a big oppressive blocker for me, really, and that's at times just really all that I needed. And the life gain would have been cool, but I had 4 cards that I put in there with pump or +1/+1 counter effects. So the first one was the Dawn Strike Vanguard, and that guy also had lifelink, but what I put it in was hoping I'd be able to get 2 or more creatures tapped and put +1/+1 counter on each creature I control other than this creature. I did get it out on the field. It ended up getting Cryo Shattered. It got Cryo Shattered, so it didn't really do much for me, and I was playing from behind, so I blocked with it, so it died. It was a whole thing. Then there was the Lux Knight Breacher, and let me tell you, the Lux Knight Breacher in match 2, game 2, along with talking about the Monoist, right, from before, this was sweet because I ended up getting it out there with 3 +1/+1 counters on it because I had 2 creatures and a artifact on the board, which it's a 5/5 for 4. That's good. We like that. And then skipping to the end of this category here, the Weft Blade Enhancer, I warped it and then I hardcast it the next turn, and I put a counter on the Lux Knight Breacher both times. So I ended up having this massive 7/7. And then the Monoist Circuit Feeder is going to be our last pump style effect. I got that out there really only once. That was in my match 3. I ended up putting it on one of my hull carvers that I have, spoiler alert. And then I had 1 ramp piece, so the All Fates scroll was the ramp piece that came in. I wanted to get to the point where I would actually blow it up, but if we're being honest, I hardly ever got 7 lands on the field. And I mean, I don't think I mentioned this at the beginning, but I went 2-1, and my 3rd game was so close. It was an incredible game. I really enjoyed that game, even though I ended up losing. I think it was probably one of my favorite games that I've played so far. So now going down to removal, and I'm gonna show these first, and then we'll talk about the second row, right? Beyond the Quiet, 5-drop, exile all creatures and spacecrafts. Never saw the card. Never came out of my deck. That's magic. Match 3, game 3, my opponent played it against me when I was starting to kind of take control and stabilize. And that was the thing that I ended up using the card of where I look at the opponent's hand and I exile a non-land card out of it. Yeah, I ended up going with a counterspell. Live and learn. Now I know, don't be afraid of the counterspell more than the board wipe, especially when I know I'm going to have control here. And then the Dawnsire was actually my promo card. This was one of my chase cards that I wanted. And ooh, let me tell you, match 2, game 1, the Dawnsire and another card that we'll talk about in a minute were just unstoppable. unstoppable. I only put 11 counters on it. I didn't even get it to be a 20/20 flyer, but it didn't need to be. And that's what was great about what we'll talk about when we look at the second round. Next up, depressurize. Just get some of those simple creatures, a little bit difficult to deal with, out of the way. Cast it a few times. The dubious delicacy was in the deck for the -3/-3, but I got it out once match 3 game 3, dealt 3 damage to my opponent, and unfortunately just wasn't enough. Then I did end up pulling 2 focus fires, one in foil, and this was just great removal. Just so good, because at the bare minimum I was dealing 2 damage to a creature, right? And yes, it's attacking or blocking creature, but still it was really good, because if I had no creatures in front of me and I had to deal with something, they would attack, I would remove. There's the green 4/2, I forget what the name is, but my match 3 opponent kept playing the card. Every single game I think he played it, and this was MVP for getting that out of the way, amongst other things, especially when I had creatures on the battlefield. I think biggest creature I hit was probably 5 toughness, so yeah, it was definitely worth the play, and I'm glad I got 2. So let's slide down to the second row here, and I do know that there's a card cut off there. I'll slide it over and we can talk about it in a minute. But grab kill, exiling that was sweet, and just a have to have, right? Hull Carver was a weird one, because it was actually the MVP of match 3 game 2, because I just had a ton of removal and I had answers for everything my opponent was doing, which in game 1 my opponent had answers for everything I was doing. And then in game 2 I ended up getting out 2 Hull Carvers, and I got my opponent down to 6 life just off of the Hull Carvers and removal, taking everything out. Yeah, it was so good. And that's not an error on the screen for the next card. I pulled 2 Sotheras. This was what worked with the Dawnspire that was so good, because when I did that on match 2 game 1, my opponent ended up just basically being like, I don't know what I can do here, because I ended up dropping the Dawnspire, and then on the next turn I played Sothera. And when Sothera came out, my opponent had been swinging at me all game, and I had been sacrificing creatures. I had a couple creatures in my hand. I would go to attack, and my opponent would let them through. Attack trigger with the Dawnspire. I go, okay, well, now I'm going to hit one of your creatures. And the reason why I did that rather than hitting one of my creatures is because my opponent would get a chance to exile a card, and they would always choose like their token or something small like that. With the Dawnspire, I can take the biggest pains in the game and just take it out of the whole game for us. And that's what ended up happening, and it worked great. And I think it was a fantastic card. I think Sothera actually performed probably as well. It was just really great. So really high on this card, really like it. So sweet that I got 2. Then next up, Servandum, the Sunstar Exemplar. So this is arguably the worst version of Servandum. This wasn't a bad one. Servandum did get 4 power at one point on match 3 game 3, which was the most equal. My opponent had removal for my stuff, I had a removal for my opponent's stuff. I ended up just running out of cards in hand, and I was just top decking. But yeah, it worked so well, because he ended up getting to 4, and then I just had the ability to just remove something off of his board, which unfortunately he still had more answers. And then Servandum the Lucent, the other version of it, was just incredible also, because I would end up building that board, right, with my 1/1s like my Hull Carver or the things that are created from the Honored Knight, right? And Servandum would come out and they would attack +1/+0 and Death Touch, and my opponents didn't want to block it, and they just took the damage. There was an instance in match 1 that my opponent ended up just removing Servandum because they understood it was going to get out of hand. And actually, match 1, game 3 was when Servandum went crazy. And I got him on the field, I had a bunch of creatures, and my opponent's just like, yeah, there's no way I can stop this. And the final removal card and the final card of my deck was Vote Out. So I ended up convoking for 1 creature once, but most of the time I was hard casting it. Vote Out, not a bad card, but definitely would have liked another grab kill instead. So what cards did I not put in my deck, and what else did I get that might be of note, right? So I did get the Virulent Silencer. For whatever reason, I did not notice that I had this card. Then I ended up getting Breeding Pool, which I was stoked about, but once again, unfortunately, since I wasn't running blue-green at all and just blue, an island's just going to work better for me. Then I also got the 9 cost or the Warp 3 9/9 Bygone Colossus. If I had a way to kind of abuse it going to the graveyard, I definitely would have played it. So if I had like the Zoo Effete, I would have been all for that. Red was actually really interesting because I could have splashed in red, and I had 3 Rig 4 Wars. I think there were definitely instances where that could have helped me. Do I think it would have been beneficial to play them? Probably not. Probably makes the deck more messy than anything, but it would have been interesting to actually take a couple additional cards out. And then finally, the other thing that I wanted to talk about in my pool was my blue pool was actually really good, and I could have went with it, but there was just something that like I felt I didn't have enough power to really get across the line with blue. So I had Quantum Riddler. That would have been really decent, especially with me having trouble with trying to get cards in my hand and, you know, needing lands, needing answers. Yeah, I don't know. The double blue would have been really difficult to take care of since I was already having trouble with a singular blue at times. And then I did have a Cryo Shatter. Then I was lucky enough to get 2 Mental Modulations. Then I got the Nanoform Sentinel, the Uthros Scanship. The one that was hard to leave out of the deck was Scour for Scrap. But once again, I didn't really have artifacts to deal with. I guess I could have possibly paired this with the Bygone Colossus to end up getting it out of my graveyard or get it out of my deck and put it into my hand. That wouldn't have been bad. I could have done that instead of the Monitor, but it would have definitely added a little weight to my deck for sure. And the final blue card that made me go, possibly, was the Code Cracker Hound. That was what my pool looked like. I think I probably built the best deck I could. 2-1, not bad at all. We'll take those. Yeah, so I think there is a lot of deceivingly good cards in this set. I think there's a lot of power just below the surface, and if you can find a way to turn it on, cards are going to end up being actually really good. So we'll see where it goes once these cards start being officially released. But I did want to mention that I was able to get a collector booster box, and I'm thinking about going and building out a commander deck based off of the cards that I pull out of that box. And yes, I'm not going to have enough cards for a full commander deck, but we build a commander deck out of the collector box, out of the very base of our commander deck, and then any cards that we might need in addition to that, we'll kind of go through and fill in cards that we think would be really good for the deck outside of it. I'll play it against my friends, against my coworkers, and we'll see where it goes. I think that's it for me. Tell me, did you go to a pre-release? Did you like it? Are you thinking about going to other events? Let me know down below. As always, you can like, you can subscribe, and hey, I got a W. I got 2. I hope you did too. Let's get those W's. Be kind, and until next time, everybody, peace.